Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome here to the launch pad and our live launch coverage of the second attempt to launch Juice from the French Guiana aboard an Ariane 5 rocket. If it's your first time here, welcome. My name's Zach. I'm the founder and host here at TLP, and we're glad to have you joining us here this morning, or maybe it's afternoon or evening, depending where you are around the world. Take a moment, let us know in the chat where you're watching from, and click that like button. It really does help us out. We got Harry's in England, Bladen's in Australia. We got Darren in Cheshire, UK. We've got Not Done in Canada. We've got India, Wisconsin, South Korea, Germany, the Netherlands, South Florida, France, Los Angeles, Iraq, Australia, Greece. It's great having you all joining us here this morning. If it's your first time here, though, welcome here at the Launchpad. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us for our live launch coverage of JUICE, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, an ESA spacecraft launching aboard an Ariane 5, a rocket. You're looking at a live view of Launch Area 3 at the Guiana Space Center in the French Guiana. We're going for our second launch attempt for today. This spacecraft. Yesterday, we got well into the count, but unfortunately, due to a lightning risk, they did have to scrub. So we're going to try that here again. The countdown in the top left of your screen, that's the countdown to launch. The countdown in the top right of your screen, that is the countdown to the live show beginning from Ariane Space for their countdown to launch coverage, which we'll be listening into to get an update on the spacecraft in the vehicle. But that video feed you're looking at right now, that is a live look at Launch Area 3 at the Guiana Spaceport in the French Guiana. But we're glad to have you here. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we will work on answering those live to the best of our ability. We're going to run through everything we know a little bit about today's mission, and then we will get into those questions. Make sure you keep sending those in the chat, and we will be answering those. The spacecraft JUICE will be heading to the Jupiter system. The rocket itself, the Ariane 5 rocket, is not a reusable rocket, so it will crash into the Atlantic Ocean. This will be the 295th launch for Ariane Space, their first mission of 2023, the first Ariane 5 mission of 2023. This will be the 116th mission Ariane 5 has completed, and believe it or not, we're already at 53 orbital launches in 2023, and that number is going to go up very quickly with this launch here today, Transporter 7 in the morning, and we're just a couple days away from Starship. We've got our countdown to cover 24/7 countdown to launch coverage for Starship up and running, so we hope you'll join us on that. We just received the TFRs over Starbase for launch, so that is another big step towards launch. The only thing remaining, the evacuation notice, a TFR in Hawaii, and the FAA launch license. So we're getting much closer to that integrated flight test of the Starship system. JUICE, the spacecraft that we'll be watching launch today, is an interplanetary spacecraft that will travel to the Jupiter system to do detailed observations of three of Jupiter's largest moons, Ganymede, Callisto, and Europa. All of these moons feature large oceans. The European Space Agency has characterized these with the theme of a mission of looking to emergence of habitable worlds around gas giants. Earth currently is the only planet in our solar system that we know has supported life, so this mission is seeking out to answer questions if we could maybe live around other planets on its moons. The three primary objectives of JUICE are to study Jupiter's icy moons, to explore the complex environments of the Jupiter system, and to look at the overall Jupiter system as an archetype for what gas giants across the universe may be like. The JUICE spacecraft has 10 scientific instruments on board, one experiment, and one radiation monitor, and it has an international collaboration with NASA, JAXA, and the ISA for the spacecraft. This mission is going to break several historical records, including being the first spacecraft to orbit a moon other than our own, as well as performing the first lunar Earth gravity assist, which it'll do to save fuel on its way to Jupiter. So we're excited to see this spacecraft get on its way for its mission, as it will make some history here, being able to take the studying of Jupiter and its systems to that next level. If you're just joining us, welcome. You can send in those questions by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live throughout today's stream, and we will be answering those. A couple questions about the voice. Have you got a bug? Allergies. Allergies and dirt from the side of road base. It is a beautiful thing to find sand and dust of Starbase. So, no, we're doing good. We're feeling good. And we're also trying not to be too quiet because people are still sleeping on our crew for our Starship coverage. So, no, but we're feeling good. We're glad to have you joining us here. The man says, "I'm sure that it'll launch will be juicy. Let's hope it's not too juicy, but let's hope it does get off the ground." Heavenly Days pointing out the clouds still look pretty thick and heavy, so hopefully no scrub due to static lightning risks. We'll wait and see. The fact that they're into the count, I think, is a good sign that they think they have an opportunity to launch today. But in just over 7.5 minutes, we should get an update on how that weather is looking and proceeding towards launch. Lucas is saying Ariane 5 looks too small. It's hard to have actually a grasp of how large this vehicle is. It is quite a large vehicle. Keep in mind, Ariane 5 is what launched the James Webb Space Telescope, and that couldn't fit on a Falcon 9 rocket. So this is a very large launch vehicle, but with those SRBs and stuff on the side, they're kind of all portioned together, which does give an illusion of it not being necessarily as large of a vehicle as it really is. Timothy's asking, will the winds cause trouble? It shouldn't cause anything, but they do have wind conditions that they have to stay within for the mission. So if they do achieve those winds, they will have to obviously scrub. But again, that's where we're going to wait for an update from the European Space Agency and Ariane Space as they'll begin their coverage here in just a few minutes, which will give us a rough idea. Saw some questions about what its journey to Jupiter will be like. It's going to consist of a number of flybys before it will actually get to Jupiter. So, if we see launch happening today, in August of 2024, it will do a flyby of the moon and then a flyby back here at Earth. On August 31st, 2025, it will do a flyby of Venus. On September 29th, 2026, it'll come back and do another flyby here on Earth. In January 18th, 2029, it'll do a flyby here on Earth again. And October 15th, 2029, approximately, it may do a flyby of 223 Rosa. It's expected to do its orbital insertion into Jupiter's system in July 2031, and it'll stay in the Jupiter system until December 2034. Once it leaves the Jupiter orbit in December 2034, that is when it is expected to go into the Ganymede orbit starting December 2034. That's where it would stay at that point. So quite a journey for it. It will be passing through the asteroid belt twice. That's why they're proposing possibly a flyby of 223 Rosa in October 29. But they have not confirmed whether they will do that. As of yet, they can make that decision once it goes. But it'll take 4 gravity assists and 8 years of travel for it to arrive. And that is just because of how much fuel it has and being able to make this the most fuel efficient vehicle to be able to get the larger payload there for a cheaper rate there. So 8 years of cruising, 3.5 years of science expected once it actually reaches its destination. The spacecraft itself weighs 13,146 pounds, or just over 5,900 kilograms, and it can produce up to 820 watts from its solar panels. If you're just joining us, though, welcome here to the launch pad. You're looking at a live view of Launch Area 3 at the Guiana Space Center in the French Guiana, where we are counting down to launch of the Ariane 5 carrying the JUICE, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer spacecraft, to space. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live to the best of our abilities as we continue through count. We also are going to be listening in to Ariane Space for an update here in just under 4 minutes for an update on the vehicle and the weather. We got Donovan's question about how long it'll last. Uh, Kel6 is asking, is the Ariane 5 launch vehicle considered a heavy lift vehicle? I believe it is. Let me just verify that. Yes, it is confirmed as a heavy lift. Not a super heavy lift, but a heavy lift vehicle. To give you an idea of size, the Ariane 5 on your screen is 150 to 170 feet tall, so 46 to 52 meters, all depending on the fairing. It has a diameter of 18 feet or 5.4 meters. It's a two-stage vehicle. So that's what you're looking on your screen there this morning. Great question. Thanks for sending that in, Kel6. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad, and we'll work on answering those live. Peter's asking, what are they launching? They are launching Juice, the Juicy Ice, um, the, excuse me, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer spacecraft, which will be used to study Jupiter and three of its moons to see if it's possible that moons around a larger gas giant may be possible to sustain life in the past or even presently, for us to better understand our solar system and the Jupiter system in our solar system, but also the greater idea of gas giants around the universe. If you're just joining us, though, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream. It really does help us out, and we appreciate you being here with us here at TLP. It's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we bring you full live launch coverage, docking, undocking, and return to Earth, all right here on the Launchpad. And we will be resuming our TLP news, the Launchpad news, following the Starship launch, being on site. A little bit harder to do all of our news updates, but once Starship's off the ground, we will be getting new daily news stories and a weekly news recap as well. So we're excited to be bringing that to you, as well as some great interviews. We've just recently sat down with RFA for an update on their vehicle, so we're looking forward to bringing that to you in the near future. Space Kid is asking, what fuels does the vehicle use? The two boosters use AP, which is a colorless white solid rocket fuel, and the core stages uses a combination of liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen on its options, and then the second stage uses monomethylhydrazine and dihydrogen peroxide, so MMH and N2O4, or there's the option of the second stage using liquid hydrogen and liquid oxygen, depending on what second stage they are using. If I'm correct today, they're using the liquid hydrogen and the liquid oxygen. That's the ECA second stage. Some of these vehicles, Ariane 5 and some of the others we've seen around the world, do have variations of their launch vehicles, so they can change out core stage or second stage depending on the payload that they are launching. So you can see Ariane's bus is getting ready here as we now count down 29 minutes, 20 seconds and counting until launch of Juice. We're going to listen in to an update. We'll be continuing to answer your questions, so keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the Launchpad as we count down now just 29 minutes, 7 seconds and counting until launch of Juice, the Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer, launching from Launch Area 3 at the Guiana Space Center in French Guiana. You can see their intro video here showing a view of the Guiana Space Center, introducing some of their team before they begin their live coverage. Once they actually begin that, we will listen in to them for an update. Arsh is asking, what are CubeSats? So there aren't CubeSats on board today's mission, but CubeSats are smaller satellites, kind of similar to the size of a Kleenex box, and that is what the launches on many different missions. So we see those launch on transporter missions on SpaceX Falcon 9. You can see them launch on smaller vehicles, but they are just a definition of a type of satellite, and they come in many different sizes that come. So they can be 1x1s, 1x2s, 2x1s, 2x2s, 2x3s. There's lots of different options. Andrew, can Ariane 6 launch more than Ariane 5? Yes. So Ariane 5, the vehicle we're going to be launching today, only has a couple flights left. This is its last scientific mission before Ariane 6 comes online. So we're only going to see this a couple of more times before we ultimately switch over to a new launch vehicle, possibly seeing that by the end of the year, the first tests of Ariane 6. We're going to listen in to an update. Let's listen in.
Is scheduled in just under half an hour. I'm right here in the aptly named Jupiter Mission Control Room. This is the nerve center of today's mission, and you can see here on the other side of this protective glass, which we call the fishbowl here in Kourou, you can see the teams working hard on the last preparations towards today's mission. Opposite me here we have the partners, VIPs and guests all comfortably seated and waiting for liftoff. And with me right here for an update, we have Stéphane Israël, CEO of Ariane Space. Welcome, Stéphane.
Good morning, please.
Thank you very much. So we're back here together. So can you first of all maybe tell me, 24-hour delay, what was the reason for this delay yesterday?
So very simple. The launcher was ready, JUICE was ready, the launch was ready, but the weather was not with us. You know, we have to monitor two risks. High altitude winds, and it was okay, but risk of lightning yesterday was a real risk with the cloud to monitor, and so we have made the decision not to lift off yesterday.
But of course, as we always say, better be safe than sorry. JUICE can absolutely afford to wait another day under the fairing, not a problem.
Yes, for sure, because you know that once we will have done our job after 27 minutes and once we will have orbited JUICE on an escape orbit, then it will be the start of an 8-year journey. So one day is nothing as compared to what we have ahead of us. We will monitor the weather now in the final minutes. The teams have worked all night. All is red up to now, so we are now... All is green up to now, sorry.
And we can see it on the status board, and we get some clapping here from the crowd.
It's a part of emotion for such an important mission.
It's going to bring us very good luck.
Yes,
absolutely.
All is green. And so at 9:14, we will lift off.
At 9:14, we'll lift off. Thank you so much, Stéphane, and fingers crossed, good luck for today. And we'll see you later. Thank you so much, Stéphane. And Stéphane is getting a round of applause in here in Jupiter. Of course, an emotion which is easy to understand, obviously, considering the conditions of yesterday's delay. But everything is fine, safe and sound under the fairing, as we said. So, as the teams working here in Jupiter Control, more than 7,000 kilometers away over the Atlantic at ESA's Mission Control Center in Darmstadt, Germany, we have the teams there who will take over control of the aircraft once it separates from the mothership. And we're going to go straight over and speak to them and hear how things are looking over there in Darmstadt. Over to you, Matt.
Thank you, Lisa, and hello to all our watchers. Welcome to ESOC, the European Space Operations Centre, here in Darmstadt, Germany, in the heart of Mission Control. I am. My name is Matt Russell, and I will be your host for the second half of this JUICE broadcast. And behind, we have Bruno Souza in the actual control room itself. So, hello, Bruno. Try and give us an update of what's happening in there at the moment.
Hi, Matt. We're still getting goosebumps all day, although to this time a bit more cautious goosebumps. But we are ready to go. And in fact, just a few minutes ago, the flight director, Andrea Komatsu, just did the roll call and got to go from everybody here in the room. We have some footage of that, and we're going to replay it for you.
To all stations, this is OD on the briefing loop for the roll call. Please reply on my call with your call sign and your status, go, no go. OM.
OM.
Go. Some
go.
data handling.
And data handling go.
AOCS.
AOCS go.
Platform.
Platform go.
Flight dynamics.
Flight dynamics go.
Project rep.
Project rep go.
Project support.
Project support go.
Softcode.
Softcode go.
Software support.
Software support go.
STRAC.
Extra go.
Scheduling.
Scheduling go.
Thanks. This completes the roll call for the JUICE mission. We are go for launch.
So as you just saw, we are fully ready to go. We're just waiting for that rocket to get off the launch pad.
Thanks so much, Bruno. Well, we're running out of time here, so we're back over to you, Lisa, in Kourou, and massive good luck to you.
Thank you from the teams in Darmstadt. And hey, the pressure's on. They said all we're waiting for is that rocket to take off. Well, they've told us they're ready. The rocket is ready, but we want to know about JUICE. And we have Mihaela Barbu from ESA who's here to tell us all about it. Mihaela, how ready is JUICE?
Good morning. JUICE is actually ready and excited to start this journey. As we speak, my colleagues are closely monitoring the satellite. So yesterday, after the launch postponement, the satellite was switched off, and slowly in the day, around 7:14 p.m., it has been turned on to start the countdown procedure. They are very close to us, a few kilometers away in LBC control room, and everyone is hoping for good weather specs.
Fantastic. So we have a bit of time to chat about this. So your job is schedule controller. Does that mean that you're in charge of making sure all goes to plan?
It's part of my responsibility, but you know, when it comes to scheduling, it's never one single person's job. It's actually a team exercise because planning means working coherently as a team. And us, the JUICE project team, we are quite schedule-oriented. We have a strong planning mindset. And even if you have the most perfect plan, you always have risk, you have uncertainty. And we saw that yesterday. So imagine if you take a step back, us in JUICE, we had run our AIT campaign through a pandemic. And if you think of the industrial consortium, more than 2,000 people worked on this program, 23 countries, 18 institutions, 83 companies, then you understand the complexity of project management that my colleagues and I have been performed on this mission.
And done a fantastic job so far. So this is a personal journey for you. It's 8 years, your entire professional life, because you're just a baby. So tell us how you're feeling today.
I'm very excited, and yes, JUICE is my entire career in ESA. And yesterday, as the project team, we received so much positive energy from home, from our science project. Thank you so much for your wishes. Everyone in STEC, we saw you how many were there. Thank you for your support. ESOC, ESAC, the people on the spaceport, we managed to see our extended JUICE family, our instrument colleagues, and we spoke with them. So they gave us all the energy to go through the night and to keep JUICE ready for the launch today.
Thank you so much. Have you got a last word before we leave it here?
I wish everyone to enjoy the launch from all the teams who have worked on this amazing journey. As European, I'm exceptionally proud to be part of it. And let's enjoy the event of today. It's well deserved. Absolutely
well deserved for your teams and, of course, all the other teams that you mentioned that have been working on this project. Thank you so much, Mihaela. Thank you. So as Mihaela was saying, a huge amount of work from teams all over the world. We're going to find out more about these teams' achievements and, of course, about JUICE in the next film.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We're at T-minus 20 minutes, 22 seconds and counting until the launch of JUICE, the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer. The view in the bottom right screen is a live look at Launch Area 3 at the Guiana Space Center in the French Guiana. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those live. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button, share out the stream as we count down now just under 20 minutes and counting until launch of the last scientific mission for the ESA on board Ariane 5. This Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer, or JUICE, will take 8 years to travel to Jupiter, conducting a number of flybys of the Moon and Earth, and passing through the asteroid belt twice. Once it arrives at Jupiter, it will conduct 3.5 years of science research before an end of its mission. Sometimes we see these spacecrafts actually last longer, but that is the scheduled first mission. You're looking at an animation of what JUICE will do when it arrives at Jupiter, when it studies 3 of Jupiter's moons, which each have large oceans. If you guys have questions, send those in the chat by taking us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability as we count down now 19 minutes and counting until launch. We had an update there from Stefan Israel about the status of the launch, and right now everything is trending green for launch. which is a really great sign. This is roughly where we had the weather update yesterday, so we will be keeping a close eye on the weather to make sure there is no lightning risk ahead of launch this morning. When a rocket launches through the atmosphere, with the right conditions, it can actually create a risk for lightning by its piercing of the atmosphere. So if there's already a risk of lightning, we don't take that risk of launching due to the safety of the vehicle, as you do not ever want to have lightning strikes onto a actual flying rocket.
So speaking of space exploration, we have two of the faces of human space exploration with us here today. I'm delighted to welcome once again Thomas Pesquet and Matthias Maurer. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for being with us again today. It's a pleasure. So we're seeing JUICE go up into space with these outstanding instruments. What is it about sending this kind of instrument, going out to space yourselves, that helps us back here on Earth? First question to you.
Yeah, I think space exploration really in space ticks all the boxes. You've got all the short-term benefits, you know, the things that we all use, that we all have in our smartphones, the navigation, the weather report. And then you have the more medium-term, I would say, applications. The reason we know today about climate change, the reason we're in position to fight climate change is thanks to all the missions we send around the Earth and observing the Earth. So that's kind of the more medium terms. Space agencies are the champions of fighting against climate change. And then you have the longer term, the far-reaching benefits for the future. And that's the research and the exploration we're doing, the research on board the space station, building better materials, you know, better medicine, better treatments. And it all diffuses in society on Earth and it's going to make the progress, you know, go up one step at a time. And then those missions going far out into the solar system, it's really to look at ourselves, our place in the universe, how do planets form, where do we come from, where are we going? Those are very important questions, and those are the type of questions that we're trying to solve with those missions.
Fantastic. Well, we're talking about JUICE today that's about to lift off and go on its mission, a long, long journey. But what about human space exploration? What are the next destinations?
Well, I think the next destination is very much the moon. I mean, the next big thing in space exploration, human space exploration, is the Artemis program. ESA has a big part to play in the Artemis program. We're providing the European service module to the Orion capsule. And that means one day we'll see European astronauts around the moon, on the moon. And so to prepare for this, we also have our robotic moon exploration. And then what we learn on the moon will put us in a position one day to go to Mars. And Mars is the twin sister of the Earth. That's where we learn a lot on ourselves. It had similar conditions. It has lost its atmosphere. Liquid water also has disappeared. Can it happen to us? You know, those are important questions. And that's why we'll go to Mars first with our probes, with our orbiters, and then one day with human exploration to Mars. That's the big prize money, the big goal, the big step.
Fantastic. Wow. It makes you dream. But of course, what I would like to know from you, Matthias, is are you guys getting ready to take part in these adventures?
Yes, so Thomas and I, we already flew to a low Earth orbit, and flying to the moon, we need to learn more, because on the moon you need geologists. So we need to go out in the field and learn how to talk with the geologist, how to be the hands and the eyes of the geologist once we're on the surface of the moon. And ESA already started this training for European astronauts some years ago. And so we see continuously European astronauts going out into the field, learning all these skills. But we also need to develop facilities where we can train European astronauts what to do on the moon. And so in Cologne, we will now have the moon training facility, which will enable to do all this training over there. And it will be so good that even hopefully the NASA astronauts will come over to train there, for their Artemis mission. So that's the big vision that we have. But it's not only learning for the moon. We also should also keep in focus that we have European astronauts flying to the ISS. Andy Mogensen is getting ready to fly later this year. And we just started a new astronaut class. They will be flying to the ISS, hopefully, and to whatever comes after the ISS.
So do you imagine yourself taking off from here from the European spaceport here in French Guiana one day, Matthias?
Yes, we are currently in times that are really like a revolution in space. And so Europe needs to step up. And one of the big missions that we have, we need to become sovereign, to become autonomous, also with access to space for Europeans from European soil. And I think French Guiana is the ideal place to send Europeans on a European rocket in a European capsule to space. It's our big dream. Thomas and I, we would love to fly together from here to low Earth orbit, but maybe even also in a European rocket further towards the moon.
And you said you'd be happy to welcome your NASA friends as well.
Absolutely. I mean, it's like we should not forget spaceflight is also a soft diplomacy power. And we will see very soon that China will invite foreign astronauts to fly to their space station. And so we Europeans, we are just learning that in these times it becomes more and more important to be on level field playing. And spaceflight definitely is also an important part in the diplomacy area.
Huge thank you, Matthias. And we have with us Josef Aschbacher. You are the Director General of ESA. Thank you for joining us. So in a nutshell here, what we've been talking about is Europe's capabilities for independent launch. Are you going to make this happen? You have 15 seconds.
It's not for me to make it happen. It's all the others to make it happen. But certainly we have been working very hard on it. We have consulted experts, independent experts, to help us giving advice what this would mean for Europe as a unity of all the countries, the inspiration we would give, the economic benefits, the geopolitical strength that would be portrayed through such an activity. So there's a lot of interesting facets, and you have just heard Matthias and Thomas talking about those because it's so important, and yes, we are working on it. But let's talk about JUICE because that's why we're here. Also another excellence where Europe is really good, and let's look how our satellites and our launches are doing.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Huge thank you.
Thank you.
And to talk about JUICE, I am joined by Raphael Chevrier from Ariane Space. Raphael is going to take us step by step all the way through every step of the mission. Raphael.
Hello, Liz.
Hello. Welcome to Road to Space, and I'm going to let you take over from here and tell us what the next steps are.
Yes, so this morning we are launching towards the east, where we benefit from the slingshot effect given by the rotation of the Earth. So the launcher performs a first pitch maneuver in order to get us into the right direction. And only 2 minutes and 17 seconds after liftoff, the two boosters have done their jobs of providing the main thrust, so we don't need them anymore. They are detached from the launcher. Shortly after that, the fairing, which protecting the spacecraft from the environment of the launch, is also jettisoned as we have crossed the limits of the atmosphere. Once the launcher reaches an intermediate orbit, the main stage is cut off and separated. So then the upper stage takes over, which engine is going to power for about 16 minutes in order to raise speed and altitude and release JUICE on the targeted orbit. So, by the way, the little towers that you see on the motion picture, they represent a chain of telemetry stations that are receiving data from the Ariane 5 in real time all along the flight path. After some orientation maneuvers, JUICE is separated on a liberations orbit. It means that it will have the required speed to escape literally the gravitational pull of the Earth. Then this is almost the end of the mission from the launcher, as we still need to perform some disposal maneuvers of the upper stage, but JUICE is only beginning its journey. ESA teams will use the Norcia ground telemetry stations in Australia to acquire the signal from the spacecraft and take full control of it. 1 hour and a half after liftoff, Joule will start deploying itself like a butterfly into space. First, it will unfold the large solar panels. Their total surface is 85 square meters. This is definitely bigger than my Parisian apartment. And then, in the following days, it will deploy its many antennas and probes. So the animation here doesn't depict the increasing altitude that JUICE is going to get, getting farther and farther from Earth on its way to its 8-year journey to Jupiter.
Thank you so much, Raphael. It's all very clear. And actually, as Raphael was speaking, so you can see the pictures of Ariane on the launch pad. As Raphael was speaking, we hit the next milestone in our in the chronology, which is, of course, the -10 weather update. And
yes.
I'm looking at the board. All is green. I
All is green right now.
Anything in my earpiece? I don't see anyone picking up a mic. So it's looking good so far.
It is green and we're good to go.
Looking good to go.
What we check, like Stefan said, we are usually checking the wind at high altitude, the wind in the vicinity of the launch pad, and also the risk of lightning. Yesterday, it is the risk of lightning that prevented us from launching, but today, everything's good. We're good to go. We can continue the operations.
That sounds great. And continuing the operations means that we're heading towards what we call the synchronized sequence. We'll talk about that in just a minute. So there's another team. You see the teams working here. Final preparation underway here in Jupiter Control, but of course there's another team at the Launch Control Center, which is much closer to the launch. It's about 4 kilometers to the launcher, and they've been working since last night. So they've not slept. Tell us more about them.
Well, these teams are monitoring all the operations during the final countdown. So, for example, they are filling the cryogenic stages. They are cooling the Vulcan engine, that's the main engine of the launcher. They are pressurizing the upper stage sphere.
This is them hard at work in the morning.
Exactly, and I think the images were shot this morning actually. And so it's all these operations that are leading us to the start of the synchronized sequence.
So what is this synchronized sequence, Raphael?
Well, it's a real crucial step.
You have 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I'm going to make it very quick. It's basically a succession of operations aimed at giving more and more autonomy to the launcher and to set it in its flight configuration.
Yeah, because
30
it's
seconds.
an irreversible. Once we've started the synchronized sequence, we can't go back.
No, so we are going.
Absolutely. And we're going to now wait and hear.
À tous de DDO,
Right.
attention pour le début de la séquence finale lanceur. Top H0 moins 7 minutes.
So there we heard it from the DDO, who is the Range Operations Manager. We'll talk about him in a minute. And he's just announced the start of the synchronized sequence. Just a quick question. Why does it have to happen at -7? We were just saying.
Well, I mean, this is obviously not a magic number. This is just the time for all these last-minute operations to be performed. For example, we are topping up and pressurizing the tanks. We switch the power supply from ground to board, and only then the launcher is going to be fully awakened for launch.
Fantastic. For those who are joining us, we are 6 minutes and 20 seconds to liftoff of Ariane 5, carrying JUICE on the first leg of its journey into space and towards Jupiter. As Raphael was saying, Ariane, we were talking about this earlier, Ariane normally launches 2 passengers, but this time it's a single passenger. So can you just go quickly into what difference that makes for the launcher?
Oh, for the launcher, this is a very precious passenger, but for the launcher, it remains exactly the same. You have the 2 lateral boosters, you have the main stage, you have the upper stage, 1 fairing. We are also launching towards the east, which is the same direction as for standard telecommunication satellites. Only the final destination is a bit different. This is Jupiter. It is the last time that we performed such a single configuration. One of the last time was for launching the Space Telescope James Webb. Let's hope today is going to be as flawless and smooth.
Absolutely. And let's quickly now go into the film and have a look at the last couple of months of launch preparations.
4 months ago, key elements of the Ariane 5 rocket arrived by boat on the coast of Kourou. They were carefully transferred.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are at T-minus 5 minutes and counting until launch of Arianespace's Ariane 5 rocket from Launch Area 3 at the French Guiana. You're looking at a live view of the pad in the bottom right corner of your screen. If it's your first time here, welcome. Make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth, because here at TLP, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together, and we're glad to have you joining us here for the final ESA scientific mission on board an Ariane 5 rocket. The next ones will take place on Ariane 6, which we expect to see the first maiden flight sometime in the next year. 4 minutes, 20 seconds, and counting till launch. The rocket is go, the range is go, and weather is trending green for launch. If you haven't yet, take a moment, engage that like button. It really does help us out. Share out the stream as we count down to the last scientific mission of Ariane 5, starting to wrap up a historic era of space exploration and launches with a launch vehicle. Of course, we do have our 24/7 countdown to launch coverage running for Starship. We do have an update that we do have flight restrictions now in place for Starbase. So the only remaining things, we need a flight restriction in Hawaii, we need that evacuation notice and an FAA launch license, and we will be go for launch T-minus 2 days, 23 hours, 48 minutes and counting until launch of Starship. We are now T-minus 3 minutes, 25 seconds and counting until launch of the Ariane 5 rocket from Launch Area 3 in the French Guiana. If you guys have questions, you can keep sending those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live to the best of our ability. It takes about 25 minutes from launch to deployment, beginning JUICE's 8-year journey to Jupiter, where he'll have a 3.5-year life of investigations and research around 3 of Jupiter's moons, each that have large oceans. Jules, thank you so much for becoming part of our crew as a general support. Really do appreciate your support there. T-minus 2 minutes, 45 seconds and counting.
So, our passenger is sitting safe and sound, tucked under the fairing, as you can see, waiting for liftoff in just over 2 minutes.
As always, here at TLP, as we get into the final minutes of the count, we want to see a go, no go in the chat. So you can give us there. You can see the launch doors have opened in the fishbowl. Everyone has ran outside for the final 2 minutes of the count as we stand by for the last scientific mission launch of Ariane 5 from Launch Area 3 in the French Guiana. Coming down into the count, range is go, weather is go, T-minus 2 minutes and counting. Let's listen in.
Because trust me, you feel it. What are we going to see in the last few seconds before liftoff, Raphael?
Well, everything is going to happen quite quickly. So, like I said, the electrical power supplies switch from ground to board. The cryogenic arms, which are feeding the upper stage with fuel, we'll see them retract 6 seconds before liftoff. The Vulcan engine will ignite first. We need to check it's working properly before we switch on the boosters. That's going to happen 7 seconds later. So don't be surprised if you don't see anything during these 7 seconds, because believe me, you will see and you will hear the launch.
And you'll be hearing every milestone being called out by the DDO. He is the Range Operations Manager, and his role is in an... Oh, we'll wait for the 1 minute mark. Raphael.
À tous de DDO, attention pour moins 1 minute. Top H0 moins 1 minute.
Right, so from here on, no more commentary from us. Don't be surprised if it doesn't take off immediately, because of course there are those 7 seconds, Raphael.
Exactly, so just enjoy the launch.
During which the Vulcan engines are set on, and then the launcher takes off.
Go Ariane 5.
Go Ariane 5. Enjoy.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 20.
À tous de DDO, attention pour le décompte final.
T-minus 10,
10,
9,
9,
8,
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, top. Allumage Vulcain. Allumage EAP, décollage.
And we have a liftoff of Ariane 5 from Launch Area 3, the Guiana Space Center in French Guiana, carrying JUICE, beginning its 8-year journey to Jupiter.
La propulsion est nominale. La propulsion est nominale.
And there we go. We've seen the Ariane 5 liftoff, roaring through the tropical sky, carrying Juice on the first leg of her journey into space. And now she has disappeared under the crowds. And see there, in Kourou, there are many places from which to watch these launches. As you can see, the beach, any place. And here we have a glimpse again of the rocket. Raphael, it's an amazing sensation for you as well, I'm sure.
Yeah, even with the clouds, it's just...
La trajectoire est nominale, tous les paramètres bord sont nominaux.
It's really, really always impressive, and it's an emotion to see it. So the DDO said that the trajectory is nominal, which means that it's working perfectly, it's going as planned.
La propulsion est nominale, le pilotage est calme.
And in fact, just to sum up what the DDO does in 3 words, his responsibility, he's the person who calls out every milestone along the way, and he's in charge of providing information on propulsion, guidance, and trajectory.
Exactly, he's like an orchestra conductor, gathering all the informations and summarizing it in real time, and soon we'll have booster separation.
We're waiting for confirmation from the DDO.
Séparation des EAP.
So the boosters have been safely separated. This is great. They have provided 90% of the overall thrust of the flight, so they're doing the main job. And then soon we'll have the separation of the fairing. And by the way, you see a special drawing on the fairing right here. Children around the world were asked to submit artwork
La trajectoire est nominale.
inspired by Juice's epic journey. And on this fairing, we see one child's interpretation of Jupiter embracing our spacecraft. Everything is nominal.
Tous les paramètres bord sont nominaux.
All parameters are going smoothly.
And there we have it. We've seen it in our 3D
Séparation preuve
animation.
confirmée.
And we've just heard it from the DDO.
Confirmed. So the fairing was used to protect the satellites from the friction of the air, but also from the noise generated during the ascent phase. We obviously need to safely separate the fairing, otherwise we would not be able to release Juice into space.
La propulsion est nominale.
It also means that we have crossed the limit of the atmosphere. So Juice is on its way to be separated in about 24 minutes from now. So by the way, we will have so the separation of the cryogenic stage when it has placed the launcher on an intermediate orbit. After this, I can mention that during, and we can actually see it on the motion design, because this is 3D animations here, that during the ascent phase, the launcher is set in what we call a barbecue mode. So it's slightly rotating on itself at a speed of 0.7 degrees per
Le
second.
pilotage est calme, la propulsion est nominale.
So we do this so that every face of the satellite is equally exposed to the sunlight. We just want to avoid overheating in one particular side of the spacecraft, which could damage the instruments. And as a matter of fact, when the upper stage is going to be injected on the targeted orbit, it will also rotate at a speed of 0.5 degrees in one direction, and then at the same speed in the other direction. Again, to avoid overheating on one part of the spacecraft, exactly like, a barbecue.
Exactly. And of course, there are the onboard computers. What are they measuring right now, Raphael?
Well, they optimize the trajectory.
La propulsion est nominale, le pilotage est calme.
Everything is nominal, so they optimize the trajectory in real time. They minimize the propellant consumptions to bring the launcher to the intermediate orbit, targeted at the end of the main stage propulsion phase. And as a matter of fact, we are accelerating a lot right now. So within the next 3 to 4 minutes, we'll go from, 3.5 kilometers per second to more than 7 kilometers per second.
So how much is that per hour? Because you're the engineer.
25,000 kilometers per hour. And ultimately, Juice will be separated at a speed of almost 10 kilometers per second. and it will be separated at an altitude of 1,533 kilometers.
Very precise. Okay. So the next milestone we are now waiting for, and we'll be hearing this again from the DDO, is the acquisition by our downrange station of Natal. That is located in on an island in the middle of the Atlantic. I'll just wait and hear that from the DDO. He may not have confirmed it orally, but by now it is.
Just to explain, all along the route eastwards, Ariane is tracked from the ground. So the launcher's functions and vital signs are recorded and sent back to a network of stations that keeps constant watch on the health of the launcher systems.
Par la station télémesure de Natal.
And we have
it.
The confirmation that the first...
Apologies, of course, I did not mean Ascension. I meant Natal, over the border in Brazil, of course. That's the second downrange station.
And just so you know, in all, that's about 1,500 parameters that is collected.
Collected, my goodness. So that there's no way these 1,500 parameters can be analyzed in real time, Raphael. What happens to them?
Well, the complete analysis is carried out in the weeks following the launch by a dedicated team. They provide a wealth of information about how the vehicle performed during its mission. And so this is why we constantly, improve our knowledge of a launcher, launch after launch. And then that's why Ariane 5 is such a reliable launcher.
And so you were talking about the stations, and it's a little bit, you were saying to me earlier when we were chatting, it's like a relay race, these stations, isn't it? These downrange.
Yeah.
You were listening to the DDO. What did he say? I didn't hear him.
He said that all the parameters are working perfectly.
Nominal, that's what we like to hear.
So the flight is perfectly smooth. So yeah, this is like a relay race with one telemetry station passing the baton to the next one, because we want to keep full visibility of the launcher in all dynamic phases of the flight. So the first stations to pick up the data was Galileo, right here in Kourou, followed by Natal in Brazil, then the island of Ascension in the middle of the Atlantic, and followed by Libreville in Gabon, and finally Malindi in Kenya.
As the launcher crosses
Trajectoire nominale, tout paramètres nominaux.
So we'll have 3 different, very short sequences right now.
Coming up.
The cutoff of the main stage.
We should hear that.
The jettison of the main stage, and then the ignition of the upper stage. So it should be confirmed.
Extinction Vulcain. Séparation EPC.
And the ignition coming up.
Yep. Waiting for the
Allumage ESC confirmé.
That's a very good news. That's very important.
You should see the smile on Raphael's face. You can't, because we're in our little booth. Because we forgot to mention that we are now in the sky booth, where we have a fantastic view over Jupiter, where we can see the crowds gathered. And yes, and so you cannot see the smile on Raphael's face, but he is delighted that this stage has gone perfectly.
Yeah, the ignition of upper stage is absolutely key, because it's always quite a little bit tricky to ignite a liquid stage in the emptiness of space. I told you that on the ground we wait for a few seconds to check that the Vulcan engine is correctly ignited before.
Fin de visibilité par la station de Galileo.
Before liftoff. But in space, it's just not possible to do that. You cannot send somebody to repair the engine. Also in zero gravity, the propellant is floating in all directions.
Le pilotage est calme.
The thermal environment is also not the same as it is on the ground. So, you know, there are many factors that make it quite
Trajectoire
challenging
nominale, tout paramètres bord nominaux.
and complex to ignite the engine in space.
So we were mentioning earlier, this is the penultimate Ariane 5 launch, which for more than a quarter of a century has provided Europe with reliable and independent access to space, which Joseph Aschbacher was talking about earlier. Ariane 6 will be taking over. Europe's best engineers are building on the success of Ariane 5, and there's already a fully integrated Ariane 6 on the launch pad right here in Kourou. You're going to tell us about that, Raphael. So can you take us through the latest developments with Ariane 6?
So last year was quite exciting for Ariane 6 with the start combined test corresponding to the meeting between the launcher and the launch pad here in Europe Spaceport. Here we see a fully representative version of Ariane 6, which has been assembled with the main core raised vertically, directed on the launch pad. The upper composite was then hoisted and mated on top of the launcher. This operational scheme is actually a big difference with respect to what is done with Ariane 5. It is made possible thanks to this mobile gantry, which will obviously be removed during launch. And also, 2023 is going to be also a busy year for Ariane 6, obviously. In January, the launcher was connected to the control bench, and the first power test was performed. Then dry run will be performed, followed by the actual fueling operations of the central core. Teams will also perform hot firing tests of the lower stage engine, Vulcan 2.1, including a long firing test. And hot firing tests of the upper stage were successfully performed in 2022 and beginning of 2023 in Lampershausen at the German Aerospace Center. Next ones are under preparation. So launcher elements that will be used for the Ariane 6 first flight will arrive in French Guiana using the new generation canopy vessel, which will be equipped with sails and hybrid propulsion. So that we can start the first real launch campaign of Ariane 6. And so today, the prototype of Ariane 6, stands on the launch pad, ready to continue the combined test. So good luck for this very ambitious and incredible program.
And Raphael, we heard while you were explaining all of this, we heard that the DDO called out the loss of signal with the Natal tracking station. Now, there we go. And we didn't hear that it hadn't been picked up by the next station. Is that normal?
It is perfectly normal to have short visibility holes during non-dynamic phases of the launch. In this case, we have no visibility for just 63 seconds before the Ascension ground station picks the signal back. So this should come in any seconds now.
Acquisition de la télémesure par la station d'Ascension.
Your timing is perfect.
Confirmed.
So we've been picked up by the next downrange station, that is Ascension, the tiny little island in the South Atlantic, and everything is nominal, the DDO is telling us. So from what I understand, we're going back to Ariane 6, there's a very healthy order book already for Ariane 6 launches, Raphael.
Yeah, Ariane 6 is already quite successful on the market, with already 28 launchers sold for both institutional and commercial customers. It is a very versatile, flexible launcher, perfectly suited for complex missions and satellite constellations deployment thanks to its high liftoff capability and its reignitable upper stage engine.
La trajectoire est nominale, tous les paramètres bord sont nominaux.
It's nice to hear the regular updates from the DDO that everything is going to plan. For those of you who are joining us, Ariane 5 lifted off 14 minutes ago, just over 14 minutes ago, from the European Spaceport here in French Guiana, carrying ESA's Jupiter Icy Moons Explorer into outer space. We're bringing you this live show from the Jupiter control room, where the operational teams are overseeing the mission's progress. JUICE is due to separate in about 13 minutes' time, but this is just the start of its long journey on its way to Jupiter. Let's find out more about the tech on board that will help it fulfill its mission.
La propulsion est nominale, le pilote.
And if you're just joining us, welcome here to the launch pad. We are now 14 minutes, 53 seconds into flight of JUICE, the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer. It's continuing on its journey, about 10 minutes away from deployment, beginning its 8-year journey to Jupiter. If it was your first time here, welcome. My name is Zach, founder and host here at TLP. Here at the launch pad, it's our mission to inform and inspire the explorers of tomorrow, because we believe that space is better together. And we invite you to engage that subscribe button so you never miss another launch live, or an undocking or docking at the International Space Station, or return to Earth. If you haven't yet, take a moment, check out tlpnetwork.com. That is where you can stay up to date on all of the upcoming launches with our detailed mission briefings. Also, it is a launch day, which means you can head over to the launchpad.store at tlpnetwork.com and get 10% off of everything using promo code LAUNCHDAY. We've got global shipping, sizes from extra small to 6XL, so lots of options for everyone so you can get your launch gear. We, of course, have a large collection of stuff for the Starship integrated flight test. So definitely have that. We're counting down 2 Starships. We hope you'll join us in our 24/7 countdown to launch for that. We are now T-minus 2 hours, 23 minutes, 28 seconds and counting until launch. 2 days, 23 hours, 28 minutes, and counting until launch of Starship. The only things left, we need one more flight restriction over Hawaii, and we need that FAA launch license. The evacuation notice we know will be dropped generally within 24 hours of the event, so everything proceeding well towards a test flight opportunity on Monday morning, and of course we'll be going live for that. You can join us live from about the 2 hour 30-minute mark for full commentated coverage of the launch of Starship, and we hope you'll join us for that. If you haven't yet, though, take a moment, engage that subscribe button, and consider joining us over on our Discord. That's where the TLP community hangs out in between streams, because we do believe that space is better together. Our Discord is free to join. If you do like what we do and like to help support us, you can hit that join button, become a TLP member, and get behind-the-scenes access, early video access, and more, starting just 99 cents. And you get that awesome helmet next to your name, so consider becoming a member here. Now, just over 17 minutes into flight, under 10 minutes until deployment for the JUICE spacecraft. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat by tagging us at the launch pad. We'll work on answering those live for this last little bit of the coast phase ahead of actual deployment. Just make sure you're tagging us at the launch pad so we can see those coming in.
It is an emblematic European science mission. So what is it about this particular mission that inspires you as a rocket scientist?
Well, dream. And dream has always been a very strong driving force.
Acquisition par la station télémesure de Libreville.
For me, but also for, I think, everybody who works in the space industry. And, if we go on a more personal note, actually, before working at Ariane Space, many years ago already in my life as a space writer, I remember that one of my first real article I wrote was about Jupiter's icy moon and the preparation of the JUICE mission with a focus on the moon Europa. And you can imagine that I would have never thought back then that I would be here standing at Kourou Spaceport in the Jupiter room to comment on its deployment into space. And I think I'm not mistaken when I say that all my colleagues are inspired by such emblematic mission. It really gives us an extra boost each time.
And especially when it comes to a mission aimed at looking for signs of life, that is just something else. It's difficult to actually fathom.
Can you, I mean, yeah, the ambition of JUICE, and it's a very complex mission, by the way.
La propulsion est nominale, le pilotage est calme.
So everything is nominal, but thinking that one probe is going to be around the moons of Jupiter, which are unexplored worlds with oceans of liquid water under the ice surface.
La trajectoire est nominale, tous les paramètres bord sont nominaux.
Where exobiologists expect to find some forms of life, we don't know, like microbes, maybe shrimps, maybe small fish. Probably not, but let's dream. And especially on the moon of Europa, it's just absolutely incredible.
Indeed, Raphael, hundreds of professionals in Europe are working on this crucial mission. We met some of them earlier, and as we know, it takes a whole family to put such an expedition together. So let's hear from some of the partners of this mission.
Now 19 minutes 58 seconds into flight. JUICE currently an altitude of 300 kilometers, having traveled already over 6,800 kilometers downrange, traveling 9.17 kilometers a second, coming up about 5 minutes or so away from spacecraft separation, beginning its journey to Jupiter. An 8-year journey out, consisting of multiple Earth and Moon flybys, passing through the asteroid belt twice before arriving to conduct 3.5 years of science at 3 of Jupiter's largest moons that all have oceans, which is where they're hoping to find those signs that they may have been able to sustain life or may even currently still sustain life. If you guys have questions, you can send those in the chat, tagging us at the launch pad, and we'll work on answering those. If you hear birds, it's because we are here at Starbase, counting down to the launch of Starship, outside watching a beautiful sunrise over Starbase as another day gets closer to the launch of Starship. Lightning Jacket launched 19 minutes. We are now 21 minutes into flight, continuing towards that payload spacecraft separation in just a few minutes from now. John Keane just got on. Looks like a great launch. Yeah, it looked like a nice, clean one. Very cloudy day down at the French Guiana, so not many ground views of the rocket actually in flight, but all the telemetry has been nominal, saying that the flight is good, and Ariane 5 has had another successful launch, the last scientific launch of Ariane 5 for the ESA.
So we are coming up to 22 minutes after liftoff, which means that in just over 5 minutes, JUICE will be separating from the mothership and starting its own life in space. Raphael, can you give us an update on where we're at right now?
So everything is working perfectly.
Acquisition par la station télémesure de Malindi.
So we have the Malindi telemetry station acquisition. So in the past 5 minutes, we went from 190 kilometers to more than 500 kilometers of altitude. So it now has a speed of 9.6 kilometers per second, which is absolutely gigantic. It is almost the speed at which JUICE will be separated into space. During the next 5 minutes, we'll increase altitude even faster. We'll gain an additional 1,000 kilometers in altitude. And by the way, the weight of our structure right now is 14 tons about, only 2% of the initial mass of the Ariane 5 when it was on the ground.
That is just unbelievable, 2%. Ariane 5 typically launches geostationary transfer orbit launches. So here we're sending JUICE obviously much, much farther on an escape orbit. How is this different? How does it differ, for example, from launching a telecom satellite, which are many of the satellites that are launched with Ariane 5?
Well, the energy to provide to the spacecraft by the launcher is higher. It needs to escape the gravitational pull of the Earth. Also for geostationary launches, we usually have a launch window of typically 30 minutes to 1 hour and a half, let's say, during which we can try and launch. And today's mission is sort of a rendezvous mission. And there was no launch window. It was what we call an instant launch. So we had to launch an exact time. So this is why everything has to go smoothly, even the weather before launching. Also, geo launches to the geostationary orbit usually happen in the evening. Today we launched in the morning, meaning that the team have been working all night during the final countdown. And also, we had to slightly adapt the filling of the tanks of the upper stage with cryogenic propellant, as the launcher was exposed to the sun since early morning, 6 a.m. So the sun heats and increases the pressure of the tanks, so we had to slightly underload it by 120 tons, which is,
which is
kilos, sorry.
So how is it, this mission in itself, different in terms of preparation?
Well, we needed to take extra care in terms of cleanliness, because before leaving the Earth, we want to know exactly what kind of biological material JUICE takes with it. In French Guiana, there were several institutes which took samples from JUICE in the various satellite preparation rooms. Of course, most of the microbes will be sterilized in space, watched out by space radiation, but some can survive. Here we see on the image His Majesty the King of Belgium and His Royal Highness Prince Gabriel, who
And they are here as VIP guests because Belgium has contributed rather importantly towards
Fin de la propulsion
preparations
ESC
for
confirmée.
JUICE. So we were talking about, we were looking at the difference in preparation, weren't we?
The second main difference is that, you know, JUICE will perform very precise magnetic field measurements around Ganymede, the moon of Jupiter. And we had to measure many times the magnetic environment of JUICE during the launch campaign on the ground to make sure that in space it will measure only the magnetic environment of Ganymede and not its own magnetic field.
Because it has a very, very strong magnetic field, of course.
Exactly.
Okay, and so in a nutshell, looking at the time, we actually have, I haven't heard it from the DDO, did you?
So right now, we are in the stage where the upper stage is performing slight orientation maneuvers to separate the spacecraft in a very specific direction. It's important to do so on time in a very precise way, as it will really drive the satellite injection accuracy and have an impact on the rest of the spacecraft's lifetime in space. Just to give you an
La
idea,
manœuvre d'orientation au profit de JUICE
JUICE will perform
se poursuit de
what we
manière
call a
nominale.
trajectory correction maneuver. And so the better the injection precision, the less important the maneuver is going to be, meaning that JUICE will be able to save its precious fuel for the rest of the mission.
And Raphael, we are 30 seconds away from separation. What are we going to see exactly? And then we'll stop the commentary and wait for the moment. In a nutshell?
Well, let me remind you that this is 3D animation here, but the teams are receiving signals and information in real time, and it is them who will confirm the separation of JUICE on its liberation orbit. They will provide all necessary information to ESA teams so that they can inquire the spacecraft.
Let's wait for confirmation from the DDO.
Séparation JUICE confirmée.
And this has been confirmed that the spacecraft is safely separated on its targeted orbit. And you can see on the images the relief from the teams.
This is years and years of work on the part of these teams.
Decades of works for some teams.
Yes. And it is so good to see such joy on their faces.
No, but
Of
look at
course,
this.
a reminder that this is the very, very first leg of JUICE's journey.
You can see the emotions on the faces. That's really what makes space activities so special. It's like a reboost each time we launch a satellite. And what a satellite right now. Honestly, I can only wish good luck to JUICE and all the teams for this incredible journey through the outer solar system. That's absolutely amazing what we are living right now.
And there we have it. JUICE, the Jupiter Icy Moon Explorer spacecraft, is on its way to Jupiter, beginning its 8-year mission to the gas giant, where it'll spend 3.5 years studying 3 of its largest moons, a historic mission using a moon-Earth flyby, a 8-year journey with multiple flybys, passing through the asteroid belt twice before arriving at its final destination. If it was your first time here, make sure you engage that subscribe button so you never miss another live launch coverage, docking, undocking, or return to Earth. That is going to wrap it up for us here. We're going to send you over to our 24/7 countdown to launch coverage for Starship, as we are T-minus 2 days, 23 hours, 15 minutes and counting until the historic first flight of the Starship Super Heavy launch vehicle. The TLP crew is down here at Starbase. We're going to be giving some more updates over the coming days as we count down to the historic flight. But that's going to do it for our live launch coverage of JUICE. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you in a couple of days for the historic flight of Starship. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.